Thank you for the amazing intro, and thanks for inviting and making all this possible. I noticed in the presentation I really didn't do an intro bit about myself, so I'm just gonna go and just do it here, improv. I'm Atta. I'm the managing director and co-founder of Torpor Games. I'm a dual German and Turkish citizen. Lived in Turkey most of my life, actually. Moved to Berlin in 2018 to chase this dream of a company. We always wanted to make games that talk about life and talk about parts of life, of society, and this company ended up being the vessel of how we get that across to the world. We founded it in 2019. Before that, I got into the games industry by modding games. I modded Paradox Interactive games, specifically Suzerain 3. That modding experience then got me some opportunities at Paradox and Paradox partner studios. And then I just started jumping around a few projects. So basically got into the games industry just by tinkering with the games I like. And then eventually all of the learnings I took along the way from projects like Squad, like Suzerain 3, Their Finest Hour, East versus West, which got canceled, but you learn more from their mistakes and failures than the successes. And also a few other ones like Terminal Conflict. I kind of took all that knowledge, as well as my studies and other things, and put it in this work, basically. So I'll kick off the presentation. This presentation is primarily about sharing information of what worked for us. This might not work for everyone, which I'll also have a final comment on. It's just about our experience and where we see growth, where we see potential, and where we see how one can run a sustainable studio in the indie games field. Yeah, and I also noticed both talks are about something with death, so I think indies are just a bit morbid these days. Fitting. So Torpor Games. We make experiences that challenge and provoke. Our goal is to explore the human condition through provocative storytelling and immersive game experiences, which is a long way to say that we want to kind of touch people on this subject and make them rethink the world through our experiences, which is also a long way to say it. So I will mostly quickly recap of how we got to the past 2 years and then talk about the past 2 years, because I think that's the critical part as well recently, now that I noticed the games industry is changing a lot. So when we founded in 2019, we had invested into the Suzerain game, which is a political RPG where you play a president, deal with 1 million words in story, and lots of choices about societal subjects, about economy, defense, welfare, people, ideologies, all that stuff. We had invested about 3.5 years at that point already into an alpha where we had basically no funding and no investment and no resources. So basically pure passion project. I was in Turkey 2017, 18, working a lot on it with just no end in sight, basically. So the classic indie experience, chasing dreams, even though it might not amount to something. And in 2019, I won the GDC lottery ticket. And because I had no money at the time, I borrowed 1,000 euros from a very close family friend of ours, because my bank was basically at close to zero. And I flew over to GDC. I met 25 investors, and we partnered up with Fellow Traveler, which is a narrative games publisher, and they invested in our studio. So essentially, that made things become real again, as at that point we're about to crash down. So we got my closest friends. We were already working on it together. I mean, I have to thank them, because if they didn't believe in this, I wouldn't be here either. So big thanks to my team. Big thanks to everyone at Torpor. They started getting more involved, getting salaries, and of course, getting more stability in our development, which ended up getting us pushed to release to 2020 December. So that was about 1.5 years after we got founded as a company in Berlin. And the game launch went successful, and it was way better than what we expected. So and then from then, it became about figuring out how to do this long-term, as healthy as possible, not as crazy as what happened between 2017 and 2020, which was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's that part. Recently released the DLC, which I'll get back to here. So in the past 2 years after this point, after a few years down to our release, we noticed that like, how does one create the games like one loves in a sustainable way as a studio, and like, what does the community want? What do we have, and how can we make all of this work? It was like very difficult because releasing games takes years. If we just take Suzerain by standard, we cannot run a studio for another 4 years to release a game. So yeah, then came the thinking approach, and humans sometimes excel in like healthy constraints. I'm gonna say healthy because that's important. Then we came up with a new way of dealing with our post-launch situation. So key things we noticed. One of the things that we think made us successful was the difference in game design and how we approach Suzerain. So when we designed Suzerain, we designed the game around the experience we want to create, not looking at other games per se directly, but about what a political management experience that tells a human story needs. And from there, with community feedback, we iteratively developed on it. So a lot of the times, this made us notice that what we expect as genre conventions don't work for our game. And if we fit in one genre convention of like, okay, this is a strategy game, this is a visual novel game or a story game, it really makes the experience less of what we desired as designers. So then we pushed because we believed in doing things a bit differently and exploring some of the corners. So innovation allowed us in that way, combining game design and narrative, to create an audience that likes elements of both genres. And then we basically grew the audience from there. And the ludonarrative innovation here got expanded on with our first DLC that released in March this year, which added a more flexible resource and decision-making system called the Royal Decrease feature. In this DLC, you play a monarch. And also, we added a full turn-based combat game where you play a war with multiple units, production, and everything included. All optional, all part of the DLC, and not part of the main game. So that was kind of unique in how we approached that. Yeah. So essentially, here is a screenshot of Suzerain's just like map view and Suzerain's base game. So that's the Swordland game. And the second one is like a shot from our DLC's war mechanic. The DLC also has a map version, like, as you classically traverse the country. But that mechanic literally only opens if you declare war. So you have a diplomatic way to solve the crisis. But if you fight, you actually fight. And this is something we noticed did a few things. The strategy gamers in our audience who enjoyed the story aspect of what Suzerain provided really, really enjoyed the mechanic and interacted with it like much longer. While people who love story more actually gave, either avoided the war or gave their generals control over the war, which is also simulated within the game with the resources and decisions you make. So we kind of catered to different parts of our audience that love different weighted game design. So yeah, that was very daring for a small studio because any change from the usual is just risk. But with risk comes some cool innovations and things that you discover. And we kind of want to continue on this thing in a healthy way. So one of our next projects is The Conformist, which is a semi-sandbox 3D narrative RPG with dynamic strategy and simulation elements. Sounds a mouthful. It has die rolls and deep customization, but also a strategic gameplay. So we want to explore spaces where multiple genres collide and innovation just deepens. The narrative innovation for us is multi-perspective political entertainment. So that is very important, to tell the story of how you see the world and give the players the expression to see the world in many different ways and change it. Regardless of what we believe or not, we try to include as many different political views as possible in our games. And the idea behind it is we want to create a meta discussion about how the mechanisms of ideologies work, in what they appeal to people, and how they can change the world we live in. And we all do this in a fictional universe, in the Suzerain universe. Yeah, so Kingdom of Rizia added the strategic mechanics, and our Suzerain DLCs are going to experiment with different features each DLC, and each DLC will have its own feature. So basically, it's kind of like you're buying a new game. The game experiences are also about 10 hours long, and they're replayed about 3 to 4 times on average. So it's kind of like we're releasing new games within a game. The Conformists are prequel to Suzerain, 20 years before, set in the story. It melds RPG and strategy elements, but in a 3D environment. And this project is showing how society changes from the bottom up. And that's the big difference that we're trying to chase is Suzerain shows you as a leader of society dealing with a fictional nation, its government system, its political issues, its people issues, and you try to exert change from the top down. Whereas like Conformist actually is, you're a propagandist working for the government at the beginning of the game, and then you try to change the society from the bottom up. You can join the resistance factions, different ideologies, and try to win the first multi-party election. And this is kind of like some new shots on how it looks like. So it's our first branch of the full 3D environment. So the pillars of the Conformist, and I'll quickly talk about this because it goes a bit into the innovation and aspects we want to explore. Definitely one of the things that people love is how many fans engage with the main characters and the expression of the main characters. So this time we want to deepen a bit on the character's skills and influence, add die rolls, but at a basic level, so we're not going to go too deep with that, but just add a bit of flair and opportunity. And in the story, we'll face a lot of moral and political dilemmas, just like you're used to from Suzerain, or people are used to from Suzerain. And the key is like you will be expressing your thoughts and feelings in this universe. So it is a very expressive thing. Our games are about expressing the world and changing the world. So that part is like very central. We have propaganda mechanics that we're developing, which spread or counter existing propaganda, assigning mission to factions and politicians, swaying public opinion, actually making other factions fight each other are things that we're design exploring right now. And this way we will show how the city changes from your perspective and how the elections happen. Branching narrative, very expensive to produce. Think 50 times before you do this, but we thought it way too late. In Suzerain, we have 1.5 million words now, and our estimate is we'll break 2 million in a year. And this new project as well will have a lot of words. Super expensive to localize, super expensive to handle, so just think 50 times, but our audience loves it, so it's part of our deal. Yeah, so the branching narrative changes the story drastically, so it becomes your story, and that's a big part of why I like games as well, where I can change it to within the design confines of the experience. And the other thing is a dynamic and reactive city. So we're using a certain art style, and it allows us to produce a lot more faster. The goal is that when certain factions get more powerful, you'll see the change in the city visually represented as well. And the propaganda and influence will overlay over the city. So you'll experience your change as you walk through the environment, but also as you view it from a strategic layer. These are the hopes and pillars and the dreams that we're chasing right now. That doesn't mean we'll exactly get everything done, but this is how we did it in Suzerain as well. When we started, we just listed a few things and we just chased them and we got very close. Moving on. So one of the important things of maintaining a studio post-launch, and I'm going to tie it back to like the sustainability and health of a studio. We noticed that launching is just the start of the journey. Like there's a lot of things that happens after. It's retaining key staff, making sure your incomes are continuing, making sure that you can launch within the allocated budget that you have, and doing it the healthiest way possible, which is very, very difficult. So we found a few things that helped us along this journey. Platform expansions helped Suzerain grow. Our mobile launch reached 500,000 people around the world, which to our shock, we never thought we would, because we didn't do any paid advertisement or anything. And Switch helped a bit to spread the game further. So these were all post-launch boosts. They also came with some platform deals, which helped us kind of maintain the studio health when it comes to finances. It also opened the game to new audiences, right? Like there are a lot of people in the world that want to have experiences that are political, and this was one way to getting to those people. And these releases helped us fill revenue valleys. So in the games industry, we're used to, especially our types of games, that we are still an evolving game because we release a lot of updates, which I'll also get back to, but there's always this valley that you go down after a launch. And our goal was to like make this valley as smooth as possible before we go up to the next thing. And yeah, the help with a huge marketing boost. Reddit shot up from like 7,000 people to like 20K within that year. So mobile really boosted our Reddit community, which is crazy active, which I'll share some stats about in a bit. Key points, as I mentioned, the platform-specific deals helped. So the target audience actually grew, and we started like thinking about it a bit more differently as well. And the console and mobile launches, like they helped us also transition our game to be platform compatible, like multi-platform compatible, so we can cross-release. One mistake we did, and this is something to be careful about, doing custom ports that detach from your code base is super bad, because this is something we didn't have a lot of experience. We did all the porting ourselves. We actually created a Switch and mobile port that were off in another branch. So now we are redoing them because we had to update the game to get to the DLC model. So if you're going to invest in something, think long term, because sometimes the short term decisions will cost you a lot more development time or resources in the long term. So this is something that bit us, but we really needed the money at the time, and that was the shortest solution. So it's a what do you call it, hindsight type of thing. Other side revenue was platform-specific features, merchandise, and we got some other stuff to just make us keep going. So for mobile, so we're updating the mobile version, and we're trying to find like a monetization way that does not sell our souls. So one thing we're doing is we're adding a story point system for freemium users. So we noticed 92% of our mobile audience actually does never buy the game, and they're actually angry at us. So we joined the Google Indie Accelerator program and graduated last July. Throughout this program, we learned a lot, that there are a lot of people around the world that don't have credit cards, that don't have enough money to spend on games. And it's also unfair to them to block our game, is one thing I discovered. So we created a hybrid monetization model that we're soon going to release. It basically allows for different parts of the audience to be monetized completely separately. So premiums are still premium. Freemium users get a different experience, and we also add time-based subscriptions so people can experience everything within a time frame. All these systems are flexible, so even premium players can get free game content just by playing the game, and the currency is not purchasable, so there is no currency purchase. All the currency earns are either through ads or by just playing the game, unlocking very difficult achievements, etc. So we're trying to find a system that hybrid monetizes the game in such a way that's really as fair as possible, and caters to different audiences. A lot of people from India complained that they cannot afford the premium cost, for example. So yeah, so we're gonna launch this sometime soon, but this is another way of making sure the company gets revenue and can maintain itself while growing. We're also launching the DLC with this update. So post-launch strategies and studio longevity is the big topic. So regular content updates helped us a lot. We patched Suzerain, I think, more than 49 times since launch, which feels like a live game. And it kind of is, to be honest. We work on it like a live game. And it's very key to release something every 6 to 9 months. The reason why I say this is the audience is hungry. Like, they want more from your content. They want more from what you do. So even if it's small content patches, releasing stuff continuously helps you a lot. Ideally, you do this in a way where there's a small content patch and then there's a big release and it just rotates and rotates and rotates. The challenge is, how do you bring the production down to a speed at this level? And very tough. But you can do a few different things at the same time that will help you hit these things. So yeah, this helped us grow our audience quite drastically. And I was shocked actually how this model could work, because we're still a story game. And how do story games become evolving? Because usually story games just release and that's it, right? But we're transitioning to the system that as if we were like a live story game, a live universe development. Building on a proven product, expanding on products like Suzerain with the Kingdom of Rizia DLC, helped us explore new angles in the universe. We were a president, and now we're playing a monarch 2 countries down. Completely different culture, different geopolitical situation, energy problems, neighbor conflicts, very different things, same universe. You meet your Anton, like your initial president, in the DLC. So all this stuff is now interconnected, which creates this consistent place that people can explore. Yeah, and we developed a codex in our game. In Suzerain, this was at the initial launch as well. To make the political decisions make sense, we created a universe around them, a framework of political values, systems, people, organizations. So when you play the game, the decisions you make have some substance. This thing we publish as a website. Now the website is getting 60 to 70,000 views every month, and like that's a huge amount per year. And we notice people are scrolling through our lore, exploring stuff, fan stories, fan fiction, anime, everything, because we just published it online. So not only is it in the game, but it is also online available. Multi-product strategy. So we decided to create a portfolio, a portfolio of games within this universe, because people get really involved and attached, and they invest so much time in it, and they start creating their own structures. So the best thing is to then make everything within this universe, but explore what the genres we want to explore. Because as a studio, I think it's really nice to have a drive for change and innovation as healthy as possible, because sometimes you can also do bad experimentation, right? But allowing this baseline of a universe and then experimenting within it is something that, you know, gets us excited as a team and allows us to push some boundaries. And the community knows us as well. We shared a survey where 75% of the community was supportive of the innovative mechanical changes that we have conducted. Yeah, so a couple of direct things we've done. There's save game transfer between Suzerain and the Rizia DLC, which means the choices you've made in Suzerain are reflected to your Rizia character, the monarch character that you're playing, and you see how you played back then, but also there are economic connections, so there's impact to your gameplay and resources, for example. Community engagement was very key for us. Every week we post something. Every month we have a huge dev blog. We try to share a lot about our journey, about our team. If we change offices, there are pictures and videos. If we're recording our anthems for the DLC, there is a video. Like, we try to be as open as possible. It's like, hey, you know, this is us. We're trying to do our best, and this is our reasoning and everything. So we're trying to explain a lot of what goes on with the studio. And the community also is part of the development, because then, you know, as you know, in online communities, bug reports, gameplay suggestions, everything comes through to us. And we have a system that actually incorporates this, which I'll share in a bit as well. So yeah, a big example was 3 years after Suzerain's launch, we did a free patch called the 2.0 update. We basically redid the entire UI, added, I think, 15% more story, lots of choices. This reactivated the community. The DLC then added on top, which I'll show in a graph. We engaged a lot with the community, did ARGs to reveal stuff, so engaged community in the discovery of releases. And all this stuff combined, I think, allowed us to have some growth in general. It's a bit hardly visible maybe here, but so essentially the top graph is our 22 to 23 Steam active player count graph. So the little spike at the top left is like a daily, was it like daily deal from like Steam? And the 2.0 update is the spike on the right. So that was the big free update we've conducted. Now, if you look down, that big spike on the top right is the small spike at the bottom left. So that's the 2023 versus 2024 chart. And the big spike on the right is our DLC launch. So we see like consistent growth in the strategy of updating the game, adding content, deepening the lore, and just expanding the universe. And this is just Steam. So we also have a massive audience in mobile and a very small one on Switch, because we didn't do Japanese. Yeah. So going a bit to this IP interconnectivity. So Suzerain was our first flagship title. We want to build 4 flagship titles. That's our dream. And we like to share our dreams, not because they're going to happen, but because we want to work towards something. Then the DLC came out March this year. We have an attach rate actually of 25%. It says 20 here. I need to update that. But our daily user count 4x'd, and our concurrent users broke the launch record of Suzerain by 3x. So Suzerain's launch concurrent record was 1,030 players on Steam, and DLC's launch concurrent was 3,300. So it's at the same time at the given moment. So our goal is to build multiple DLCs for Suzerain, focus on our second flagship, the Conformist, and also start exploring other avenues if we have the energy and the games are good enough. Those are all dreams as well. Like, for example, a TV series thing was discussed with a TV company, like a big one. There's potential, but it's complicated. But also, yeah, we want to explore the universe further with other stuff. So yeah, consistent community communications, marketing strategy, as I've explained. The RP sessions were amazing. So every time we did a launch, we did a Discord roleplay session, which lasted a few weeks. And the whole strategy was that it would reveal the characters, the lore, and the key discussions before the start of the story. So everybody in the audience would engage with the lore. Everybody in the audience would start creating their characters and understand the political situation, which was super fun. And it was basically the audience teaching themselves the setting and the plot of the experience that they will play. And these were crazy successful. Both launches had super fun with them. I also joined a few times, which was great. Yeah, the ARGs helped a lot as well, discovering what's going to release and what type of tease is coming. So I heavily recommend ARGs. And utilizing platforms like Reddit and Discord to grow our community was essential. Like, our dev team looks at Reddit every day now. Everybody's addicted because there's posts coming in every hour. So the memes are crazy. So we're having a lot of fun as well with the community being so active. So public feedback system. So this is something that helped a lot. There's a review bot that pushes Steam reviews into our internal Discord, as well as our public Discord. This way, we see what people think about the game every day. Every day, the reviews drop into our own Discord, and we can see it in a channel, and we can think about them. Not that we're going to act on everything, but we always are in sync with what the people are saying. The other thing is we have a tool called Codex that we use for production. It's a great production tool. I heavily recommend it for games. It's made by a Berlin studio called Machine Mensch. They have a system where you can do actually public bug tracking that also falls into our internal bug tracking. So they can upvote, they can actually, push ideas, vote on them, and we can see what people want. We can see all the issues. And when we fix stuff, they see our comments on it. So we can basically directly talk with the community about issues and fix them. Super helpful, that one. And we love doing this because it just allows a lot of good progress. And marketing in tandem with community, we shared a lot of fan art. We shared a lot of the stuff the community does. We were recently at the Tokyo Game Show. There was a fan who made a 7.5-hour-long anime in Suzerain, which is wild. So we met them, we gave them gifts. So there's a lot of passion out there. And this is what I noticed as a dev team. The 16, 17 of us is just such a small group of people. There are hundreds of thousands of fans outside. And the collective power of the community will always be more than us. We kickstarted something, and we're doing our best with the resources and what we got, but unleashing the community and actually letting them push things is as important as the growth of our studio and the health of our studio. So we're all in this together, basically, is how I see it. So a part of the community growth, this is the Reddit stats from the last 12 months. So yeah, we had 20 million views, which is up 12.3, and then 52.2K uniques on average, up 27.9K, and newly subscribed people. Also some unsubscribed, but it happens, So yeah, so if you update your game, science, people come. So yeah. Yeah, so the other part, and this is the part that in the industry is a big issue right now, and that's how I also wanted to make this talk. Creating the right financial conditions for a studio to function is an incredible challenge, and I respect all dev teams. Every team out there that has released a game went through that journey. It's wild. I have immense respect. For us, we tapped into all types of funding resources to make this happen. We got a federal German games grant for the mobile and Switch ports. We had one angel investor invest in us right before the launch of the game to ensure our post-launch was supported well enough so that we had stability. We had angel loans happen right before certain launches, and there was some tightening in the money supply. We had a micro VC invest. a lot of the investors we got in were at the very small amounts, so they never like affected our development. We got local game loan that was non-repay, so no risk. Publisher investment loan from fellow traveler that we paid all back within the launch month of Suzerain. We got some award money, platform deal minimum guarantees, and a little merch revenue here and there. Not much, because we just gave the merch away to the team and to others, so it just like disappeared. But essentially, we just tapped into everything, and on top, of course, the game sales, right? Like, but this is just this just shows you like how much effort it takes, like, to just make a studio run, even though, like, you know, like it sells okay. Like Suzerain sold more than 250,000 copies. So yeah, just to give you a reference point. So yeah, strategic funding, publishing investment, angel investment was essential in releasing Suzerain. Without them, I don't think we could have done it. I had no money. I was minus 3,000 euros in the bank account when we signed the publishing deal. The rest of the stuff helped sustain the development, so we could push for more content, more DLCs, and we're doing more stuff for the future. And we also built the prototype for the Conformist, which was amazing that we did that in the year where we did a Switch port while we were developing mobile, and at the same time we created an entire 2-hour-long game prototype that was in 3D, and we've never done like 3D locations as a studio. So it's a very intense process. So staying flexible is very important. That's what I noticed. Adding resource to the team when necessary, noticing issues upcoming a bit early, being open to opportunities, and actually being honest and being like, hey, I'm worried about this. If we do this, I see these issues. What are we going to do about it, etc. Just talking to people about your worries and finding the right people is always, I think, the most important thing. Finding advisors helped us a lot. And this is another aspect, like when we started Torpor, I didn't want to do it alone. So I got 2 of my high school friends, long story. I know them for 15 years. I asked them, like, can we co-found this? Because I don't want to be in this very, like, you know, serious situation alone, because there's so much responsibility behind this. And beyond that, we also got a lot of business advisors and angels who come from different parts of the industry, of different skill sets, who believe in the long-term vision, who believe that games is a medium to discuss politics and, of course, be entertaining first, but also then educational second. And they helped us in a lot of critical decisions. So, like, if they weren't around, I think we've made like 2 or 3 massive mistakes that would have just cost us, and we wouldn't be here today either. So finding like good advisors and people that love and chase the passion that you chase is, I think, very important. Some artwork from our DLC, which has a bit of a different vibe. We are the monarch, and that's our mom holding our shoulder. And the other thing, which is, like, without the team, nothing exists anyway. Building a resilient and flexible team, people that you want to work with, people that want to work with you. It's built on trust, passion, kindness, very important, because the atmosphere of indie dev is super challenging, mentally, financially. So having people around who are just going through hardship with kindness, I think, is like the most important thing. I think pushing adaptability, helping people, help others, creating an atmosphere where, you know, you cover each other's weaknesses and you push each other's strengths. That's like a very, very important thing, because when things get really tough, it's always the people around you that matter. So, yeah. And we kept giving people second and third chances when issues arose. So this was very important for me, because, you know, nobody's perfect. We all have our faults. We all have our moments. At the end of the day, we're all human. And giving people as much leeway as possible, as much communication as possible. My philosophy was that's always the best way, and that will remain so. Handling tough times. This is the hard one. When money is running out, people don't know if their salaries are going to continue, their payments are going to continue. This is the hardest part of my job, because I started doing game design, and I still do game design and on the game. But you know, it's getting serious. People's lives depend on this. So when there were these tough moments, being open, being communicative, being like, hey, I don't know either. That was like a lot of the times the case. So I just told people, hey, just start looking for alternatives just in case. if things go well, you'll be the first to know, and then you can cancel those alternatives. Stuff like this, just being honest, right? It is what it is. Like, no reason to not talk about it. And that builds trust, because people are like, this person is honest. It's out of their control as well. So, you know. And believing in people, like if people have good ideas and they want to take it all the way, verifying them and just letting them excel is also, I think, a big part of it. I started this journey, it was literally 4 a.m. at night. Why don't we have a political game that tells a human perspective, a human story, an emotional story, but has also strategy elements? That was literally the first idea that came to my mind. And some people believed in me, and that idea got better because of them. And same way now, somebody in your studio or somebody you know might believe in something that might change things. So just pushing for like strong belief in something, of course, vetting and everything is, I think, very important. So giving space for people to innovate as much as possible within the framework of production. Yeah, so key takeaways. Regular updates, community engagement, expanding the game universe were key to maintain our relevance long after launch. Platform expansion and diversifying revenue. Launching on multiple platforms, exploring side revenue streams were essential. Community engagement, consistent communication and transparent feedback mechanisms, building a strong connection with your audience. Our audience is our strength, and that will remain so. Securing funding and building a resilient team, securing alternative funding systems outside of traditional game systems, like finding risk-free loans or art funding, etc., and or like getting some advisor funding, etc. Like all these things really mattered for us at least. And innovation is the spark in you to think how games can be and how the games you make can be better or different. And not losing that spark and creating an atmosphere where you as an artist, you as a creative team, you can say, we're trying things, please accept us as we try things. And that was another thing I wanted to create, because another thing I saw, when musicians, for example, get really famous on a certain album, people want to hear the same album instead of their new songs. That's something I wanted to avoid in our company. I wanted us to have the space to always change and be flexible. The journey is filled with challenges, like a lot of challenges, but with resilience, innovation, a strong connection to your community and your team, I think it's possible to find success and longevity. What worked for us may have been a result of luck, preparation, hard work, timing, or a combination of all these factors. Every game and studio has different circumstances, so what works for one may not work for the other. This is very important to tell in speeches, I think. So each case is unique and adaptability is key. Those are they're like a wrap up of my thoughts. I think right now the largest challenge remains funding like upcoming new teams and new projects in the industry. And the other one is maintaining the companies that exist with like an audience that grows. So looking at these systems will help. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'd love to take some questions if you have any.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Do we have somebody to ask something? Oh, let's keep it private. Oh, good.
I'm curious, when you were developing the world for Suzerain, was it first that you were developing the idea only for the one country, or were you keeping in mind the entire world the entire time?
So at first, it started with the country and its neighbors. So the logical confine was for the country to make sense, it needs reference points. It's kind of like, identity exists in relation to other things. When I came up with the country, I was like, all right, but this country is cool in this way, but it by itself doesn't mean much. Let's just drop these other countries around it and let's explore those identities and then create this geopolitical network of relations. So it all came together, but a lot of the focus and effort went onto the country first, because we started creating the cities, the characters. Those were like the initial thing, the cabinet of the president, and that was the main effort. And then the secondary effort were the other countries, but it came together. We first built the universe while making the initial dialogues and the features. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more people? Anything you can tell more about the TV project? I'm a big fan. Why I'm asking? I'm a big fan of these transmedia projects when games are connected to TV or cinema. Maybe just from the idea side, is it animation or you're thinking about like feature?
I mean, so we had like multiple talks with different people. One thing is we want to make something that expands on the games, but without touching the games. So it's kind of like either a prequel or something that's before one of the game experiences. And the reason is like we don't want to take away what a person has felt in the game and change the game with. Because as soon as you drop something, oh, this is Anton Rain's TV show, then it's not the Anton that you played in the game, right? So it takes away about this connection that you have because everybody's connection is somewhat personalized with the game. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is it would actually be in tandem with a launch of a flagship product, so like flagship game. So that would be, either the Conformist or the third flagship. Where we're like, okay, it comes before it or after it, so it would like come together. The cool thing is because we have like near plus million words, and our script is actually so many characters and branching. It's actually good for TV stuff as well because the characters are ready, the personalities are designed, the world is also there. So for TV producers or similar, it's actually a great opportunity to just take and make something out of. And that's the other part. We need to retain control of the IP and what we want to do because we also take it very seriously. We make political entertainment. It needs to have a lot of nuance and grayness. And that's why we want to retain a lot of creative control about everything that happens in the Suzerain universe because it's very, very powerful. Like it influences people in a unique way. And we want the influence to remain on the questioning side, on the exploration of the mechanics and meta of politics and society, and not to be used by people to just, push a certain agenda. So we want to remain on the philosophical side, and that's why we want to have control over any production that would happen.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was very interesting to see like this 2030. I mean, so far away, but actually not far away, probably. So thanks, Ata. It was great to hear.